Alright, so in this video, what we are going to do is take a short detour from our more abstract analysis of series to actually define and understand the number E, right? Also known as Euler's number. You've all encountered this number before. It's a fundamental constant of nature, if you will. It of course plays an important role in complex analysis, in calculus, of course, in probability theory, and of course any number of applied scenarios, right? So one of the ways of in fact defining E is as the limit of a certain series, right? So that is how we are going to go about defining E. So by definition, this E is the limit of the following series. Okay, so by definition, I say that E is in fact summation 0 to infinity 1 by n factorial. Okay, so yeah, just remember in this case that the summation index starts from 0 rather than 1. Well, that doesn't really change anything so far as our notions of convergence of a series is concerned. Okay, now before I can use this as a definition of E, I of course have to justify why it is that this series converges in the first place, right? And we have already seen a couple of results on how to go about showing that a series converges. So at this point, feel free to pause the video and think of your own justification about why it is that this series converges, because of course that justification is required before I can use this as an operative definition of E. Okay, being a non-negative series, all one really needs to check is whether the summation here, the series here, the running sums involved are actually bounded from above, right? If not, then the series would diverge and the value would be infinity, right? So how do I justify this? I could just use a comparison test. I can upper bound the running sums by something else, and if that something else essentially converges, is bounded from above, then I'm done. Okay, so one easy bound is of the following kind. I can lower bound n factorial. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention that since the summation of 1 by n factorial starts from 0, by convention we will say 0 factorial is equal to 1. Okay, just keep this in mind. Yeah, so I want a lower bound on n factorial. An easy lower bound on n factorial is the following. N factorial is greater than or equal to 2 raised to n minus 1. This is of course true only for n greater than or equal to 1. Okay, check, that's very easy for you to verify. And so in that case, if I look at the running sum from 0 to n of 1 by k factorial, right, this is in fact going to be less than 1, corresponding to k equals 0, and then from k equals 1 onwards I have my bound, right? My bound is, well, 1 plus 1 by 2 plus all the way up to 1 by 2 raised to n minus 1, right? And further you can check that this itself is also, because this is a geometric sum up to whatever, with n terms, you can further upper bound this by the infinite sum of the geometric series, which gives you the upper bound 3, right? So firstly, by comparison test, we have said that since I have a geometric upper bound to the individual entries of the series, clearly because the geometric series converges, the original series converges, right? So we are now sure that the definition of E is in fact clean and sound. In addition, we also have an upper bound on E, right? So the moral so far is E is well defined and less than 3. Okay, so this is what we know about E so far. So to recap, E is basically defined as the limit of a particular convergent series, which is the summation from 0 to infinity 1 by n factorial. Okay, this object, that real number is what we define to be E. Okay, so now we will basically prove a few results about E. The first of these is again something that you have actually used from your high school calculus days umpteen number of times, and that's the following. Limit n tends to infinity 1 plus 1 by n whole raised to n is equal to E. Right? So you have all clearly used this as one of the rules of calculus before. Now we shall try and prove this formally. What I like about this result is that E itself doesn't have any explicit form, except that it is also known to be the limit of a certain series. In other words, it is known to be the limit of a certain sequence of running sums. Right? So to prove this, we have to basically say that these two sequences, the sequence 1 plus 1 by n raised to n and the sequence of running sums involved in the definition of E, these two sequences have the same limit without having any independent third characterization of the limit. I just have to argue that these two sequences both converge and in fact converge to the same limit. Right? So let's go through the proof. So I'm going to define the two sequences that I have to show have the same limit, right? One of these, of course, is the sequence of running sums involved in the definition of E, which is the summation from 0 to n 1 by k factorial, right? I'm going to define this as Sn, and Tn is, well, what we have in the statement of the theorem, 1 plus 1 by n raised to n. Okay, so we have to show that the sequences Sn and Tn, well, we have already shown that Sn is convergent, right? So we have to show that the sequences Sn and Tn in fact have the same limit. In other words, they converge to the same value. Okay, so the proof will work in two parts. Part 1 of the proof is as follows. We are going to basically upper bound Tn using a binomial expansion. So using the binomial theorem, your Tn is in fact 1 plus, well, n choose 1 into 1 by n, which is also 1, plus n choose 2 into 1 by n square, so n times n minus 1 by 2 factorial into 1 by n square, plus again n choose 3 into 1 by n the whole cube, and so on, all the way. Maybe I'll write one more term. So n minus 1, n minus 2 by 3 factorial into 1 by n cube, well, all the way up to n choose n, which is 1, but I'm going to write it explicitly, as follows. N choose 1 is n into n minus 1 all the way up to 1 divided by n factorial into n raised to n. Okay, so this is just the binomial expansion of Tn. Okay, we further are going to write it as follows. It's going to be 1 plus 1 plus 1 by 2 factorial into 1 minus 1 by n. Right, so effectively n minus 1, n into n minus 1 by n square is after all 1 minus 1 by n. Similarly, plus 1 by 3 factorial into 1 minus 1 by n, 1 minus 2 by n. Right, all the way up to the last term, which is going to be 1 by n factorial times 1 minus 1 by n times 1 minus 2 by n, all the way up to 1 minus n minus 1 by n. Okay, so convince yourself that this is in fact just a restatement of the binomial expansion of Tn. Now, why have we written it like this? Well, if you look at all the terms, well, except for the first two, they have factors of the form 1 minus something by n, right? 1 minus 1 by n, 1 minus 2 by n, 1 minus 3 by n, all the way up to 1 minus n minus 1 by n. Every one of these factors is less than 1. Right? So if I upper bound each of these factors by 1, then I end up with 1 plus 1 plus 1 by 2 factorial plus 1 by 3 factorial all the way up to 1 by n factorial, which is in fact exactly the same as Sn. What we have shown really in this calculation is that Tn is in fact upper bounded by Sn. Alright? So that's our first conclusion. Now, because the Tn sequence is upper bounded by the Sn sequence, and we know that the Sn sequence has a limit E by definition, we conclude that the lim sup of the Tn sequence is in fact at most equal to E, which is of course the limit and also the lim sup of the Sn sequence. Okay, so that's the first conclusion that we make from part 1. Okay, now we move on to part 2 of the proof. Right? Now, what we have done so far is basically come up with an upper bound on the Tn sequence. Now I want a lower bound on the Tn sequence, right? And I kind of want to argue that both of these match. So here is our strategy for the lower bound. What I do is I take a fixed value of m less than equal to n. Okay? And if I truncate, because Tn is a binomial expansion, if I take only the terms up to 1 by m factorial, then I'm actually getting myself a lower bound on Tn. So Tn, I'm just going to rewrite the bound, but I'm going to only retain a subset of the terms that we had before. So Tn is greater than or equal to 1 plus 1 plus 1 by 2 factorial times 1 minus 1 by n all the way up to 1 by m factorial into 1 minus 1 by n all the way times 1 minus m minus 1 by n. Right? All the terms beyond I'm omitting in this sum, and so therefore this is in fact a lower bound. Right? I've only taken the first shall we say m plus 1 terms of my binomial expansion. Right? Every term is non-negative, and so by restricting myself to only the first m plus 1 terms, I have gotten myself a lower bound on the binomial expansion. Okay, now treat m to be fixed, right? And view the right hand side of this as a sequence in n. Okay, now there are only finitely many terms on the right hand side, because I remember at this point I said treat m to be fixed, and now take the limit as n goes to infinity. Okay, so let's see what happens. If I take the limit as n goes to infinity, I would conclude that the lim inf of Tn is in fact greater than or equal to summation from 0 to m 1 by k factorial. Okay, which is in fact Sm if you think about it, right? So we have also given ourselves a lower bound in this case, but remember on the left hand side is the lim inf of Tn. The right hand side, the lower bound, is in fact Sm, right? Now this is true for every m, right? This is true because I've taken the limit as n goes to infinity, right? So this is in particular true for any m, right? And that almost gets us all the way there. So if you look at Sm, really, Sm for every single m is upper bounded by a constant, which is in fact the lim inf of the Tn sequence, right? Because every running sum is in fact upper bounded by the lim inf of Tn, it follows that the limit of this as m goes to infinity must in fact also be upper bounded, right? Because if every entry of a sequence is upper bounded by a certain constant, its limit must also in fact be upper bounded by that constant. So therefore I now conclude that lim inf of Tn is greater than or equal to, well, the limit as m goes to infinity of this bound, which is 0 to m 1 by k factorial, which is in fact e. Right? So part 1 proves that lim sup of Tn is less than equal to e. Part 2 proves that the lim inf is greater than or equal to e, both of which imply together, of course, that that the limit of the Tn sequence is equal to e. Which is what we wanted to show. Right? So this is our, you can now think of this as an independent characterization. So remember, this is what we are trying to prove, right? What we proved is that 1 plus 1 by n, the whole raised to n, this tends to e. Right? So we effectively have two equivalent definitions of e, right? I can either think of e as that real number which is the limit of the convergent series summation 0 to infinity 1 by n factorial. Alternatively, I can think of e as that real number which is the limit of the sequence 1 plus 1 by n raised to n as n goes to infinity. Right? So these two definitions of e would in fact be equivalent. All right. So so do stare at that proof. Just make sure that you understand the idea behind these the bounds, the upper bound and the lower bound. In particular, the lower bound idea is actually something that can be used quite generally. Where you kind of, in some sense, you can think of taking the limits of m and n both off to infinity, but in a certain sequence, right? And the sequence in which you take them off to infinity, in fact, matters, right? All right, okay. So having come up with the alternative characterization of E, next thing I want to say is something about the error between E and its approximation by taking a certain number of terms in the running sum. Okay, so recall once again that Sn is this, right? Summation 0 to n 1 by k factorial. Right, this is my Sn. I want to say something about the gap between Sn and E, because remember, if E is to be computed, for example, on a computer, you can only possibly numerically do this up to a certain accuracy, right? Therefore, in any such thing, even though the limit is of course well defined, you can only possibly approximate E by taking a large but finite number of terms of this of this series, clearly, right? You can only approximate it by a suitably large n, by taking the running sum up to a suitably large n, right? So it's useful to be able to judge how far off you are from the true value of E to the approximation that you got by taking by stopping at n plus 1 terms in the summation, right? Turns out you can actually bound this thing quite explicitly. So E minus Sn, I want to understand what is, how large is this? Because after all, remember, it's a non-negative series. So Sn is always going to be an underestimation of E, right? So I want to know how large is E minus Sn. Okay, so E minus Sn is in fact 1 by n plus 1 factorial plus 1 by n plus 2 factorial all the way. Right? So E minus Sn itself is a certain series which I've just written here. Now I can bound this as follows. I can bound this as 1 by n plus 1 factorial times 1 plus 1 by n plus 1 plus 1 by n plus 1 the whole square. So remember, 1 by n plus 2 is what I'm bounding from above as 1 by n plus 1. 1 by n plus 1 into 1 by n plus 2 is what I'm upper bounding by 1 by n plus 1 the whole square, and so on. So I can approximate this in terms of a geometric sum. right? And this geometric sum, I in fact know what the value is precisely. It is in fact going to be 1 by n plus 1 factorial times 1 upon 1 minus 1 by n plus 1, right? Which with an element of simplification gives you this 1 by n factorial times n. Okay, now n factorial times n grows super fast, so 1 by n factorial times n also decays super fast with n, right? So it tells you, well, how quickly the error between E and Sn in fact diminishes. So the moral of this calculation is that if you look at E minus Sn, it is in fact sandwiched between 0 and 1 by n factorial into n. Right? So we have basically proved a bound on the error that you would accrue if you approximated E by taking only the first n plus 1 terms in the series, right? N plus 1 term approximation of the series that defines E will incur an error at most 1 by n factorial times n. Okay. Now, this result is of course important from a numerical standpoint. It gives you a sense of the accuracy that you would get in approximating E using a finite sum in the series. But remarkably, it also lets us prove that E is in fact irrational. Okay, so that's just a couple of lines worth argument. So let's go through that quickly. So theorem: E is irrational. Right? Note that we define E itself as the limit of a certain series and subsequently as the limit of a certain sequence, right? So per se, I don't really have any clue whether this particular value which emerged in the limit, we only proved existence and we proved certain bounds, right? But other than that, we really didn't have any way so far of judging whether this particular limit is actually rational or not. Well, now we will prove that it is not. Right? So again, these arguments of course tend to work via contradiction. So suppose that E is equal to P by Q. Alright, E is of course positive, so where P and Q are positive integers. Right? So suppose E has a representation of the form P by Q, where P and Q are positive integers. By using the error bound that we just proved, you can argue that 0 is less than, well, E minus SQ, which is basically what you get by taking the first Q plus 1 terms in the series, right? This is in turn less than 1 by Q factorial into Q. I'm going to move the Q factorial here and argue that this is at most 1 by Q. Okay, so Q factorial times E minus SQ is in fact sandwiched between 0 and 1 by Q. Alright, good. Now we notice that if you look at Q factorial times E, this is an integer. Why? Because E is P by Q. If you multiply P by Q by Q factorial, you should get yourself an integer. Similarly, if you go back to the definition of SQ, well, you have terms with denominators with factorials less than equal to Q, right? The largest denominator among all the terms is 1 by Q factorial. So when you multiply with Q factorial, essentially Q factorial times SQ is also an integer. Right? So what you have is that if you look at this object right here, it is in fact the difference between two integers and is therefore an integer. Right? So our conclusion is that Q factorial times E minus SQ is an integer between 0 and 1. Right? Because q is at least 1. In fact, q cannot be 1, but well, q is at least 1. So 1 by q is at most 1. So therefore, q factorial into e minus sq is in fact an integer, well, strictly between 0 and 1, which is of course a contradiction. Alright, and that completes the proof. So this bound that we had between E and its finite sum approximation not only is useful from a numerical accuracy standpoint, but also helps us prove that the number E is irrational. Right? So to recap, E is an irrational number. It is defined as the limit of the following series, and we showed that it is in fact also the limit as n goes to infinity of 1 plus 1 by n raised to n. Okay, so these are things that we were able to, well, firstly we were able to show that these two definitions are equivalent, and then we were able to show that E is irrational, right? So that is all we have to say about E at this point. We will, time permitting, come back to E to bring out its connections with trigonometry and so on subsequently in the course. All right, so we stop here.